Jason Stanley wrote a book called Fascism and how fascism worked. And it talked about erasing history. What did you think about that book, Juan?
When I think about it, is we're living through the situation of erasing history, like what J.D. Vance is doing when the president gave J.D. Vance the authority to get rid of anti-American history, which means they're trying to ban Black history and women's history of what has contributed to America and white supremacy. This is the first step towards indoctrination, not education.
So basically, in order to execute the erasing of history, you have to induce fear into people. Like they inducing fear into the lawyers, the other institutions.
The college educations like Columbia University, for example, introduce fears. The lawyers, yes, you have to introduce fear.
So it's a culture of fear. They punish you for the rules, and people even turn you in and report you now, right?
Yeah, turn you in. Yeah,
So that can even happen on the job, on your job.
that's right.
Okay. Um,
If you have a job, yeah, if you're fortunate enough to not be automated by a computer,
so if you violate any ideas, you'll be what?
you'll be ostracized, punished, put in prison, sometimes put in concentration camps, even deported.
Um, and they get kind of mad because when they're trying to erase the history, because our history was based on what?
Based on the facts and the truth.
And also what?
For also diversity.
Diversity and based on slavery.
And based on slavery. And they don't want to talk about slavery. That's
Yeah.
what they don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about institutional racism of slavery or Jim Crow.
They don't want to talk about that.
Or the fact that you stole from Indians.
So they want you to think that everything in this system that happened in the United States was good, and nothing really happened bad except for what they want you to believe.
That's right.
Okay, that they want to that we're free from sin and we want to erase all the ugliness. So um, that
Not to
type.
hurt not to hurt the European emotions, feelings.
Yeah. So if we go into school uh, from K through 12, and when we get to college, we're looking for the truth. We're not looking for what
We're
paper.
not looking for what Linda McMahon, the Secretary of Education, called patriot education, what is called indoctrination.
Okay.
We're looking for the facts.
And so we just got to say what it is. The word, they say the words are vague. Well, we're not going to be vague about it.
We're not going to be translation words about. We know what that is.
It's you're just trying to get rid of
You
all
just
black, brown Jews.
yeah, black, brown Jews, and they're using anti-Semitism as a weapon to shut down freedom and dissent. And a lot of people that criticize like Israel and Palestine is also Jews. Okay? A lot of Jews.
So you got the good Jews and the bad Jews.
And it's going to lead to that trope. Remember, the Jews are the one that took down the great institutions, and it also gets to the stereotype of Jews taking over whole institutions and control of institutions.
So is that the good Jews or the bad Jews?
We don't know. That's just a racial trope.
Okay, a racial trope. So they just using Jews like they just trying to hammer it down. But the Jews have to come out and stand up for their community to let them know that what?
We're not the one that's doing it. You're not using it in our name.
That's they're not to use it in their name. So because they do DEI, that was what? A term for what?
That's a real term. They don't. This is another term because they cannot say the N word.
Well, and the terms are kind of broad, but we have to just
Right?
point it out.
We got to point out what it really is. So they're using different words like DEI hire or ghetto, anything without saying what it really is.
And so they're using the Jews to basically say they're to the left and they're destroying democracy.
Yeah, they're destroying democracy. That's just an excuse. They're using anti-Semitism as an excuse. And they use Palestinian as a slur.
So Jews' identity, that's what they trying to hammer into people's head, that it's the Jews, it's the Jews' fault.
And or they're using it like what they or if you fight for Palestinian rights, it's Palestinians or you support Hamas.
Okay. So what did you think about Columbia University betraying bending the knee?
What I think about it is do not go. I would say any college that bend the knee to this dictator, do not go to that university. Because if they're bending the knee and not standing up for themselves, they're not going to stand up for you. So if you are at Columbia University, I would encourage to drop out. And if I even want to go to Columbia, I would not even want to go to Columbia University after that. Because if they're not going to stand up for themselves, then they're not going to protect me.
Well, look what Paul Whites did. How do you think? What did you think about that?
When I thought about that, is it's sad what happened with Paul Whites, but it's an asterisk with that because they were still other lawyers were still in their clients.
You know, but still,
But still, you don't bend the knee because if you bend the knee, it's going to go after other attorneys as well.
he could have fought it. I really felt that he could have fought it, and he disappointed a lot of people.
And he put not only he disappointed a lot of people, he put other people at risk.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with Columbia. You put other students in colleges at risk. Like Columbia is Ivy League. You put other Ivy Leaguers at risk, like Harvard, Yale, Brown University, Wharton School. You put colleges and universities other at risk by you not standing up.
Yeah. And so the freedom and equality that we had, we may no longer have, and it makes it look very grim, very grim.
We're
And
making the same mistakes as 1940
what happened in 1940?
when they gave up to Adolf Hitler. We're making the same mistakes, deadly mistakes.
So this is like a no win, no hope situation where institutions are being existentially threatened, and like you said, they're not taking a stand. Okay, and that's really bad when you're looking at mass incarceration and
And not only is it going to be mass incarceration, they're starting with the immigrants and also non-students first, and it's only a matter of time before they go to Americans. They're locking people like in El Salvador.
so pretty soon.
It's going to be Americans. It's going to be full-fledged Americans that's going to be locked up.
So um, so free inquiry and will no longer be possible, right?
It will no longer be possible.
We want to tell them why it won't be possible.
Well, it won't be possible if you don't stand up now. It will not be possible because they're starting with the immigrants, the most vulnerable first, with the immigrants and the foreign student first, and it's only a matter of time before they come after us.
So,
Even full-fledged Americans. There won't be no constitutional rights. And they're opening the door to martial law.
opening the door to martial law. So those people haven't been returned yet, and they don't know if they were criminals.
They don't care if they're criminals or not. Just if you even are brown-skinned or black or brown-skinned or Muslim, you are considered a criminal itself. You are you're a threat and a criminal by itself.
But do you feel like the president is using those executive orders to kind of really threaten? Because you really can't just write something and it's going to exist. Because there's processes.
I mean, there is processes so far. So far, the appellate courts are upholding. But once it gets to the
judicial system,
the judicial system is holding so far. Okay? The lower courts and the appellate courts, they're doing it so far.
do you think that Roberts need to reel the president in? Because now he's doing what?
Now he's going after everybody. He's going after everybody. But Roberts is not going to do it. He may do a little condemning and may scold him a little bit with his words, but it's just he's not going to do anything.
Wow.
But he's not going to do anything because his real existence is to get rid of the Voting Rights Act. Once after you get what you want, then you're done. That's his Ray John Detra.
That's his reason and purpose.
Right.
To getting rid of the Voting Rights Act. That's pretty sad. You think Sotomayor?
I think the three that's going to be fighting so far is Sotomayor, Lady Kagan, and Justice Jackson, and even sometimes Amy Coney Barrett to a certain extent, because her Ray John district, Amy Coney Barrett, was to get rid of Roe versus Wade. And she already had her purpose.
And the problem with her
The
is that,
problem with her, she is like a Handmaid's Tale's version of Justice David Souter.
and also her family dynamics is different too.
Because Amy Kwame Burnett has some black children.
And
And Amy Kwame Burnett has principles. She has values.
okay, and that was one of the things why the author of that book said that he might leave, because he had what
I mean, because
Stanley had.
he had black children, and he's Jewish. And there are even college professors, and I went to what we call the Nation magazine, Nature magazine, and 75% of scientists are thinking about leaving the United States of America. 75% of scientists in the United States is thinking about, or is even considering, or is leaving the United States.
And that's going to leave the United States brain what?
It's going to leave them brain dead. And here's what Nations magazine even said when it came to that. If you lose just 35% of scientists, that could be brain dead. Brain drain.
Brain drain.
35%.
Okay, so last word is...
My last word to you is, if you don't stand up, you're going to be losing your rights. And listen, and if you have the resources to leave the United States, if professors are starting to be afraid and say you're leaving the United States, heed the warnings of the professionals. Heed the warnings of ex-CIA agents and educators. If educators start going to fear that they're politicized and they're not going to be able to do academic research and think about leaving the country, then you should heed the professionals' warning. And you should be thinking about what other country that can appreciate my values. Because that is the way this is going.
The professor said that he was going to leave. Jason Stanley said he was going to leave, but America was his home.
He always said that America was his home.
And that he would be able to fight in a better position.
He would fight in a better position like Canada, Canada is also dealing with it as well.
Okay, because Canada had his values.
Canada has its values. So I would suggest that if you do try to leave the United States, which I think that it is going to have to be necessary, do not get rid of the United States. Do not denounce your citizenship. Do not do that. I disagree with the no man's economist when it came to that. Okay. Epic economist when it came to that. When he denounced his citizenship.
Okay. So on that note,
I am out of here.